Revecca.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's great. Kalimera σας, Revecca. Kalimera στην Thessaloniki και kalimera στην Athena. My name is Defne Gönenç. I'm working as a researcher and a lecturer at Center for Mediterranean Studies at Yaşar University in Izmir. Unfortunately, we are 15 minutes late today. We apologize a lot for our technical difficulties. But we have also written it, indicated it in our YouTube channel. So we hope that we didn't keep anyone waiting out there. Hello again, everyone. So today we are hoping to connect Izmir to Athens and Thessaloniki at the same time. We are all a gendered, all three women's panel today, and it will be our second Mediterranean seminar this semester, and our topic will be the cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean. We will tackle the topic both from the theoretical and empirical perspective, and we have Revecca Pedi from University of Macedonia, Department of International and European Studies, from Thessaloniki as our main speaker. Welcome again, Kalos İrtate, Revecca a lot. And our discussants, we have Effie Charalampaki from IDIS, Institute of International Relations in Athens, based in Panteion University. Hello, Kalos İrtate, Effie, welcome again. Let me briefly tell you about the structure of our discussion. Firstly, we will have Ms. Revecca Pedi, Dr. Revecca Pedi, to speak for half an hour about the very hot topic of cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean. And then Revecca will have a small short discussion for like 10-15 minutes with Effie. And then I will also participate in the discussion, and we will collect your questions from the YouTube wall. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to write them from the wall, on the wall, and you can also send them via email, but prefer the wall. It will be, more transparent and open to everyone. And we will ask them to Revecca, to our speaker. So now the floor is yours, Revecca. Thank you very much, and welcome again to Izmir, even online. It's a great pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Defne. Dear colleagues, dear students, let me thank the Center for Mediterranean Studies at Yaşar University, and especially Defne Gönenç, for your kind invitation. Let me also thank Effie Charalampaki from IDIS for supporting the event by being our discussant today. And it's a pleasure and an honor to address colleagues and students at Yaşar University from Thessaloniki. Let me share my screen. I have prepared a very short presentation. Sorry, I think this is... Oh. Okay. Okay. So we all know that these are not the best of times in Greek-Turkish relations. I have to say this, but we all know that there are good times and bad times, and academics, hopefully, unlike politicians, have no strings attached. We are free to offer theoretical and empirical observations during good times and bad times, and we can build bridges when others burn them. And my presentation today is about lesser powers cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean. I'm going to present some theoretical and empirical perspectives based on a work that is part of a special issue on small state regional cooperation. Before proceeding with my analysis, my presentation, let me make a clarification regarding the term lesser powers. The term has its roots in the realist tradition, Waltz, 1979. It is used in order to identify those powers that are not important to the structure of the international system. For the purposes of this talk, the lesser power term reflects the small and middle powers involved in cooperation in the region better than the small state concept. In this sense, I would say that the lesser powers term refers to small and medium powers, and it is used in the way that the term small and medium enterprises is employed in business studies. Such an approach recognizes that small powers and middle powers usually confront similar challenges and opportunities. Let me start my presentation by outlining the strategic environment within which the lesser powers cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean has taken place. The current order has been analyzed within many different paradigms, under different terms and frameworks. It has been perceived as apolar or non-polar order, a multipolar order, a multiplex world, or even a regiopolarity, according to Acharya, and a multi-order world, among others. The assessment of each one of the aforementioned conceptualizations goes beyond the scope of this presentation. However, a synthesis of the aforementioned approaches can provide a useful picture of the essential elements of the current order. First, this is a post-hegemonic order with several centers of power. Great power competition is back again, yet in a very different form from that of the bipolar era that has been the most beneficial for lesser powers in the region and beyond the region. Second, multilateralism and international cooperation have been weakened at a time when the levels of global interdependence rendered them more necessary than ever. The rise of minilateralism, the lack of international cooperation during the breakout of the COVID-19 pandemic, Brexit, the inability of the UN system, and especially of the UN Security Council, to reform in order to be more inclusive and effective. Macron's view of NATO as being brain dead, at least before the invasion of Ukraine, are the symptoms of multilateralism being the great sigma of our era. Third, global power shifts and the rise of regional worlds increase the importance of regions and regional actors to such a degree that Acharya uses the term regiopolarity to conceptualize this era. Fourth, unrestrained military action is possible. Russia's invasion of Ukraine for a second time after the invasion and annexation of Crimea in 2014, China's assertiveness in Southeastern Asia, Russia's involvement in Syria, increasing violence from non-state actors and terrorist organizations, the continuing Yemen conflict, and many more show that the world is becoming anything but safer. In addition, the outreach and effectiveness of hybrid threats have been expanding. Point 3 is very, very important for our discussion today. Global power shifts and the rise of regional worlds increase the importance of regions and regional actors. According to Acharya, new regionalism has three particular characteristics in comparison with old regionalism. First, the multipolar context of new regionalism as opposed to the bipolar context of old regionalism. Second, the dominant role of hegemonic actors. We have hegemonic regionalism created from outside and above in the old regionalism version, as opposed to the autonomous nature of new regionalism from within and below. New regionalism is a bottom-up process. Third, the comprehensiveness and multidimensional nature of new regionalism, as opposed to the narrow and specific focus of the old regionalism. Each of the three aforementioned characteristics affects lesser powers considerably. Neighborhood matters to lesser powers even more than to great powers. During the bipolar and for the most part of the unipolar order, regional actors were constrained by the respective hegemons. Small states belonging to NATO or the Warsaw Pact or acting under the US shelter during the unipolar moment were safe from regional shifts of power. In contrast, today, a series of regional actors are seeking to upset the liberal order and play a greater role in world politics. They compete for regional leadership. They aspire to define developments in neighboring countries. Under these circumstances, lesser powers have two options, either to balance their stronger neighbor or to batvango. At the same time, as the making of the regional world is a bottom-up process, lesser powers have room to play a greater role. They can shape developments in their regions. New alliance dynamics in the Gulf, for example, minilateralism in the Eastern Mediterranean, small state cooperation at the regional level during the COVID-19 pandemic are indicative examples. Against this background, Eastern Mediterranean is changing. The term New Eastern Mediterranean is gaining prominence in the literature and among practitioners. The past 8 years have seen an unprecedented level of cooperation among lesser powers in the Eastern Mediterranean. Cooperation between Cyprus and Greece with Egypt, Israel, and Jordan, respectively, has been established through serial trilateral summits, and for many in the region can evolve into something bigger. Cooperation in the energy sector has attracted the lion's share of media, scholarly and policymakers' attention, and there is no doubt that the hydrocarbon discovery brought closer the states in the region. Security considerations have played their role too. However, Eastern Mediterranean states are also promoting cooperation in areas such as education, agriculture, tourism, entrepreneurship, civil protection, and the protection of cultural heritage. the US, the European Union as a whole, and also member states individually, such as France or Italy, have identified opportunities and have been involved in the development of cooperation mechanisms in the Eastern Mediterranean. At the same time, Eastern Mediterranean is facing unprecedented challenges. Instability in the region after the Arab Spring, especially in Libya and Syria, climate change, refugee flows, and radicalism. At the same time, Turkey aspires to play a new role in the region and beyond it, an aspiration that seems to fuel old tensions with Greece and the Republic of Cyprus and create new ones with neighboring states and old allies. The aim of my presentation, of my analysis today, is to investigate cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean by exploring its origins and potential from an international relations perspective. Although there has been some scholarly attention to cooperation in the new Eastern Mediterranean, there are few efforts connecting analysis about the cooperation with theoretical debates in international relations. So my work constitutes an effort to connect international relations theory with practice in the Eastern Mediterranean. In this sense, I adopt an eclectic approach, suggesting that different theoretical explanations can be complementary rather than mutually exclusive. In this respect, I'm following David Lake, and also Hemmer and Katzenstein. I look particularly at the origins of cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean through the lens of liberalism, interdependence, realism, soft balancing, and constructivism, status seeking. So let's look at the liberal perspective. Let's look at interdependence. Since November 2014, a series of trilateral mechanisms have been formed in the Eastern Mediterranean. We have the Cyprus, Greece, Egypt trilateral, which was the first one to be established, the Cyprus, Greece, Israel trilateral that followed, and the Cyprus, Greece, Jordan trilateral. Since 2014, at least 20 trilateral summits at the highest level have taken place, as well as a series of ministerial and experts meetings, a series of memorandums of understanding and protocols initiating cooperation in energy, but also in other areas such as tourism, telecommunication, medicine, etc., have been signed. Summits act as facilitators. Through summits, small powers steer cooperation, initiate joint projects, expand areas of cooperation, assess the progress of the cooperation. There is a spillover effect. This is evident in cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean. The list of the areas of cooperation is incrementally growing, but there is also an expansion of trilaterals from Egypt to Israel to Jordan, etc. Cooperation has taken the form of networks. It is open, non-hierarchical, involves the public and the private sector of the countries involved and of other countries too. It is open to other countries, other international actors, and we have multiple levels and multiple areas of cooperation. So in this respect, cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean can be seen as a way to manage mutual relations in the region and respond to common opportunities and threats with common problem solving and regional housekeeping agenda. Of course, the discovery of hydrocarbons in neighboring areas, the need to attract the interest of multinational corporations in the energy sector and beyond, the potential of economies of scale and energy export to the EU provided the foundations for the cooperations in the region. It is very important, in my view, to underline that today cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean goes beyond the energy sector. Since the beginning, the ties between the lesser powers in the area have been strengthened and broadened at the same time. The list of the areas of cooperation is now including civil cooperation, civil protection, crisis management, tourism, the fight against international terrorism and radicalism, agriculture, climate change, education, ICT, entrepreneurship, and small and medium enterprises, cooperation within international organizations, parliamentary cooperation, diaspora cooperation, people-to-people diplomacy, second-track diplomacy is an important aspect of the cooperation. However, interdependence alone cannot explain cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean. Soft balancing has been an important aspect of the cooperation too. Regional security considerations have constituted a springboard for cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean. Cooperation among lesser powers in the region started growing when all of them confronted tensions in their relations with Turkey. Tensions in Greek-Turkish relations or the Cypriot-Turkish relations are not new, although we observe a dramatic turn to coercive diplomacy. But at the same time, at the time of the initiation of the cooperations, the relations between Egypt and Turkey had deteriorated due to Sisi's coming to power. The government in Egypt saw Turkey as an enemy and vice versa. Turkey used to be Israel's best friend in the region. However, the Mavi Marmara incident and Erdogan's perception of Turkey as the protector of all Muslims ruined the relations between the two countries and encouraged the rapprochement among Israel, Greece, and Cyprus. In this sense, cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean can be seen as a form of soft balancing. According to Paul, second-tier states engaged in soft balancing develop diplomatic coalitions with one another to balance a powerful state or a rising or potentially threatening power. Paul refers to the efforts of Germany, Russia, and China and others to balance the US in its unipolar moment, mainly through their actions and coalitions building within the UN. However, his argument could be extended to lesser powers and explain, at least partly, cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean as a response to the rise of Turkey to the status of regional power. In this sense, lesser powers cooperation in the region can be perceived also as an effort to fill the power void that the US pivot to Asia and the US foreign policy under the Trump administration, both Obama and Trump administration, left in the region. The official position of all the involved countries is that their cooperation is not exclusive, but it is open to every country in the region, which adheres to its principles and goals. And for sure, it is important to create an inclusive order and an inclusive cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean. However, it seems that Turkey also perceives cooperation mechanisms in the Eastern Mediterranean as balancing tools. Its reaction after almost every meeting of the leaders of lesser powers in the region, the official criticism over the content of the official declarations, and its efforts to mend relationship with countries in the region, Egypt and Israel, even if a sacrifice of its ideological priorities is needed, reveal Turkey's anxiety, I would say, over the effects of cooperation among lesser powers in the Eastern Mediterranean and its implication for the region. Yet, soft balancing alone cannot explain the spillover of cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean. Status seeking played an important role too. Each of the involved states for different reasons was on a status-seeking quest, and cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean provided an excellent opportunity. In Egypt, for example, the Sisi government was looking for international legitimacy and recognition, and was also looking for a bridge with the EU, one that Greece and Cyprus as EU member states could provide. For Greece, the cooperation was a new orientation in its foreign policy and a way out of the economic crisis agenda in its foreign policy. The fact that consecutive Greek governments of ideological orientations are focusing on cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean and portray Greece as a change agent in the region reveals the importance that Greece attaches to cooperation in the region. For Cyprus too, it was an important part of its status-seeking strategy. Through the trilateral, Cyprus is becoming an important node in the Eastern Mediterranean, and for Cyprus, expanding its partnerships is always a way to increase support for resolving the Cyprus issue. For Israel, strengthening ties with other states in the region provided a way out of isolation and fit perfectly Netanyahu's narrative of Israel as a reliable, valuable, sought-after partner. Apart from individual state status seeking, cooperation among lesser powers in the region promoted collective status seeking. Cooperation among lesser powers created new space for action for great powers, with the US, France, and Italy, among others, taking an active part in different trilateral +1 meetings. Let me conclude my presentation with some points. From a theoretical perspective, it's important to underline the complementarity of different explanations. Cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean is a result of threat perception plus national ambitions plus strategic priorities. It's a way to facilitate mutual cooperation and co-manage interests. For sure, cooperation has raised expectations in all the involved countries. Lesser power cooperation benefits NATO and the West as a pro-Western pillar of stability in the Eastern Mediterranean. Cooperation has provoked Turkey's reaction. The future of cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean should take into account the differences in goals, expectations, and principles of different actors in the Eastern Mediterranean in order to be inclusive. At the moment, we have at least the seeds of an issue-specific international regime, the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum, looking for a common approach to gas market in the Eastern Mediterranean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Revecca, for the very interesting presentation on a very important topic. It was a very fruitful presentation. Now the floor is Effie's to, have her questions. Please, Effie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. In my turn, I would like to thank the Center for Mediterranean Studies at Yaşar University and Dr. Pedi for this generous invitation. I'm truly honored, and of course, all the students and scholars who are participating in this event. This was an extremely interesting presentation and very timely. In an era when there is so much debate about how multilateralism is considered the new multilateralism, Stuart Patrick, for example, calls it, how multilateralism is undergoing through the greatest crisis. Especially after the end of, especially after the pandemic, and now with the war in Ukraine. What role for the great powers? We have a return of great power rivalry, and the Eastern Mediterranean is returning very forcefully in the global scene as the bedrock of both cooperation but also innovation due to the war in Ukraine and the need for Europe to diversify its energy resources and become autonomous, especially from the influence of external actors and especially from Russia. So Dr. Pedi's ideas and presentation are very timely and very important. In this debate, what I would like to add is that since Dr. Pedi has tried to bridge the literature in cooperation with IR theory and empirically what is happening in our area, in the Eastern Mediterranean, that the main problem flows from the assumptions used to generate relatively parsimonious hypotheses, and especially the way we use anarchy, and also the neglect that exists in IR theory, especially for those who are doing systemic level theories about domestic politics. And Dr. Pedi very rightly mentioned about the need for track to diplomacy in our area and other initiatives, and the new regionalism by Acharya with a bottom-up approach, which is the most effective in our times. So the problem maybe in areas like ours is where they are trying to define their order, and also they are in search of a comprehensive security governance and a political regime that will contribute mutual gains to all states involved in this order, is how that we need to find a definition of cooperation that will be embraced by all states in the area. In this way, the issue really leads to the desire for balance or equivalence, and this is fear for cheating or fear for strengthening hegemonic orders or those who are aspiring to arise our hegemon in specific areas. The main literature on cooperation is vast. We have Keohane's contribution with After the Hegemony that defines cooperation as when actors adjust their behavior to the actual or anticipated preferences of others through a process of policy coordination. So I really like to ask Dr. Pedi, of course, she is recognizing that we're experiencing great challenges in the Eastern Mediterranean right now because of all the turbulence that the whole global order is experiencing after COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine and all the dynamics that are arising in our area. How, if she thinks that we should develop a common narrative regarding cooperation that would be, of course, inclusive, and how we could develop this narrative, and on what theory maybe this narrative could be based on. Or maybe if she has, I know she's working because we're collaborating on another project and she has developed an extremely interesting framework that maybe this could be, and I apologize for saying it right now in public, but we were very intrigued by the framework she's trying to create. Maybe this could be a new framework for becoming the basis of cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean. If Dr. Pedi, this is my first question, if you could please elaborate on that, I would appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your kind words. It is difficult to frame a common narrative and inclusive narrative about cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean at the moment. And of course, it's not impossible. And I believe that if we have a chance to create an inclusive narrative, this is through people-to-people diplomacy, bottom-up processes, second-track diplomacy, science diplomacy, etc. There are different goals among states in the Eastern Mediterranean at the moment, different principles, different orientations, and I believe that there are different visions about the international system. About the polarity, there are states that have a multipolar vision of the world and see themselves playing a greater role in this multipolar world. There are pro-Western states, there are EU member states, and let me say that the invasion of Ukraine and the war in Ukraine deteriorated the situation in the Eastern Mediterranean in terms of the strengthening of the cooperation or in terms of the chances of creating inclusive orders in the Eastern Mediterranean. Turbulence is not helping, and I suffice to say that not my framework cannot provide a foundation for a common narrative in the Eastern Mediterranean, unfortunately, let me say.
In this regard, don't you feel that maybe the fact that some states and also partners in our area that exist in the liberal international order as it is being framed and constructed by the transatlantic partnership, which is very important in our part of the world. And we've seen it with the gas forum that was created in 2020, with the Eastern Mediterranean Act of Partnership and Security Act in 2019. Don't you think that maybe this order in the Eastern Mediterranean and a common narrative for cooperation could be framed inside the normative and security structures of the liberal international order? And this way create an order within an order, if I can put it like that, because of course we have other states and we should respect their normative structure in the area that maybe do not wish to belong in the liberal international order, but they are partners in these trilaterals and other agreements. So what role do you think that the liberal international order normative structure and other values could play in framing this narrative and also cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean? And especially the transatlantic partnership, which is the bedrock of the liberal international order.
Thank you for this question. As I said, I believe that lesser powers cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean is pro-Western, pro-transatlantic, pro-liberal order. In this sense, I believe that we can build a common narrative based on liberal order values, and I strongly believe that lesser powers in the Eastern Mediterranean can create value for the liberal order. Unfortunately, I do not believe that this common narrative can be inclusive in order to include everyone in the region. And this is because there is competition between this narrative, the liberal order, let's call it liberal order narrative, and a multipolar vision which promotes illiberal democracy, for example, or autarkic capitalism, etc.
Mm-hmm. And this brings me to two other, oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted. You need it, I apologize. This brings me to two other questions that are great debates right now. This is very relevant to where Turkey, that's why I said before that maybe some states in our area that do not wish to be in the liberal order, or they're sitting with one foot looking west and the other foot looking east. And Turkey is a prime example of this. They are considered part of the liberal order, especially with the because of being member of NATO and all these partnerships that Turkey has with the other European member states and the European Union itself. But at the same time, it adopts a devious behavior that is looking in the East, is looking at Russia. It seems that not being very committed to the NATO partnership, all the tensions with states in our area that are NATO allies. So how would you see Turkey's role in this whole situation?
Thank you for this question. I have to say that my view, I will try to be as objective as I can, but I have to say that this is what I think about Turkey from a Greek perspective, or from a Eastern Mediterranean perspective. And it's not news that Greek-Turkish relations at the moment is in a very bad shape, maybe at a historic low point. Also, I think that it's evident that Turkey's vision of the international system is a multipolar vision, and also Turkey sees itself, in my view, as an important actor in this multipolar vision, and also, I think what is important for Turkey at the moment is its strategic autonomy, which makes Turkey to look both at the West and at the East, at the liberal order, but also looking for cooperation with other countries, autarchic regimes, etc. The thing is, and I want to underline this, that for the Eastern Mediterranean and for the countries, all the countries involved in cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean, especially for Greece and Cyprus, a pro-European, a pro-liberal order, and a progressive Turkey is important. And we all know that anytime a pro-European, progressive, pro-Western government was in power in Turkey, our relations were at their best shape. And also, even if they weren't, there were some channels of communication. The problem is that we cannot see a political party at the moment in Turkey that could play this role. So I think, in my view, I have to say this, Turkey will continue to play the card of its strategic autonomy, exploit opportunities, promote a multipolar world where Turkey could play a greater role. And I think, because we are in front of an election year in both Greece and Turkey, I think that Turkey will continue this path irrespective of the election's result, more or less.
Thank you very much for your responses. Of course, Turkey is an extremely important power in our region, and it should be included in unilateral and multilateral arrangements. And in my personal opinion, Turkey should always be welcome. In dialogue, in cooperation, Turkey should have a place in the gas forum, but as long as international law is respected, and as you, Dr. Pedi, said, that everybody abides by liberal orders, values, and the directives that are coming from the European Union and other treaties that should be always respected. And this brings me to my last question, because I don't want to take all the time. Do you think that still there is a role for the United States in our area? We're experiencing the entrenchment, but the first power in the world right now that should understand how important the Eastern Mediterranean is should be the United States. We are extremely valuable for the strategic interests of all transatlantic partners, especially the United States. So what role of the US right now?
Thank you for your question. You know that I'm working on this for my chapter in our common project. And I think that the United States have a role to play in the Eastern Mediterranean. And the Eastern Mediterranean is important to the US and is important to the West in general, irrespective of what happened in the Eastern Front in Ukraine and Russia, but at the same time, particularly because of this. And let me explain. Lesser powers cooperation in the Western Mediterranean creates space for action for the United States and attracted the attention of the United States. And this is very important for the states in the region. In my view, the United States provide shelter to the lesser powers in the region, and is an important pillar that supports the cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean. The East Med Act, for example, or military agreements with each state separately, the strengthening of the relations between United States and the Republic of Cyprus are indicative examples of how the importance of the region, what I said in my presentation, collective status seeking is for the United States. For sure, regional cooperation in the region increased the status of the region, the importance of the region for several actors in the region, and among them, most importantly, for the US.
Thank you so much. And thank you for allowing me to pose these questions to Dr. Pedi. Thank you.
Effie, thank you very much for the questions. We are it was a very, very interesting and important discussion. And we have only 2 minutes left, but given that it's a very important and interesting discussion, I would like to exploit my powers as the presenter, as the organizer, and I would like to extend, if it's okay for you, for 5 more minutes. And given we had a lot of technical difficulties, and we have 2 questions on the wall. I would like to pose them to you. Plus, I would like to also perhaps incorporate my question in between. Also to our, to those who listen to us right now, please don't hesitate to share your questions with us. I see Emre İşeri's questions on the wall for now, but if you would like to write your questions, we can also ask them to our speaker. So Revecca, Emre İşeri, firstly, thanks to you a lot,
Thank you for the invitation.
For your presentation. And then the first question is, what does it take for those lesser powers like Greece and Turkey to cooperate on harnessing sustainable energy transition against climate change? Well, I think he's asking this question because the cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean is generally talked around the issue of oil and gas cooperation. I would like to add to this question, actually. You also mentioned about the role of US as well, but it's not only about US. There are Italian, French, and American companies interested in, obtaining oil and gas from the Eastern Mediterranean. What do you think about it? Also, given the underdeveloped conditions, I mean, when we think about the Eastern Mediterranean, there is not only Turkey, there is Egypt, Lebanon, Palestine, the people who actually live in desperate conditions. But in addition to that, even these people, even using oil and gas for these people's development will contribute to climate change. And Mediterranean is already a climate change hotspot. So perhaps I can title Professor İşeri's, a question that perhaps rather than cooperating around oil and gas, another version of cooperation around renewable energies can be imagined. Second question is, what role for external, the EU for instance, and domestic politics like populism and nationalism, in the countries, can you define to go beyond the geopolitical rivalries, if there are any role for the EU or populism and nationalism within the countries, you can attach to defeat the geopolitical rivalries within the Eastern Mediterranean. Yeah, they are not easy questions, similar to Effie's questions, But well, the floor is yours again, Revecca.
Okay, thank you so much, and thanks again for your kind invitation. Let me start by saying that the Greek-Turkish problems are red line problems, and they cannot be easily solved. However, this should not be an obstacle for cooperation in areas of law politics or in very important areas such as the climate change area. Mediterranean, we are all interested in saving Mediterranean Sea for climate change. And in this respect, let me also say that no one is more interested in initiating a Greek-Turkish cooperation or EU-Turkey cooperation than Greece. It's very important for us. We prefer to cooperate with Turkey rather than being concerned because of Turkey. And I believe it's the same for Turkey. So I think that law politics issues, people-to-people diplomacy, very important areas such as climate change or assistance in times of crisis can provide a very fertile path, fertile ground for proceeding with the cooperation. However, this is not the right timing, I believe, because of the high tensions between the two countries. When someone challenges your sovereignty, you cannot open the door for cooperation. And I would admit that this is for actual reasons, but also it has to do with domestic politics too. Who could initiate cooperation in Turkey or Greece in times of high tensions? We need a different rhetoric in order to sustain cooperation. When a country is threatened, it cannot open the door of cooperation, and I want to be clear in this. With regard to populism, nationalism, geopolitical rivalries, and the role of the EU, in my view, EU's normative power can provide the solution to the EU Greek-Turkish issues and can provide a fertile ground for resolving the Greek-Turkish issues. However, Turkey should return, I would say, to its European orientation in order for the EU to provide sticks and carrots and help with regard support the resolution of the Greek-Turkish issues. The problem at the moment is that I can understand that there is disappointment in Turkey with regard to the EU's stance, and there is Euroscepticism in both Greece and Turkey at the moment. So I will say again, I will repeat that maybe, and I want to underline that this is my view, maybe the solution is first a progressive European pro-Western orientation for the part of Turkey, and at the same moment willingness from other states in Western Mediterranean, Greece of course, to create a more inclusive order, but we are not there, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much for your answers, Revecca. I'm checking the wall again to see if we have other questions, but I don't see any. Do you see any other questions if you are checking the wall as well? Sometimes, you know,
Not there,
it's not.
I'm afraid.
Oops. Sometimes, our screens don't. No. In my screen, no, nothing, no more questions. Do you see any other questions, Revecca, Effie? No, right? Okay. In this case, yeah, I mean, we are over time as well. We would like to thank a lot to Dr. Revecca Pedi and Effie Charalampaki to Thessaloniki and Athens. We succeeded in organizing our, conference despite all the technical difficulties. And I think it was a very fruitful conference because there were questions that actually challenged, some of the questions were not necessarily were on the very same line, So it made all of us, the conference made all of us to challenge our own points of view and, open the door and open our thinking to other ways of thinking, which is very much needed in political science corners nowadays, in my opinion. So thank you very much again for joining us today, in our Zoom session.
Very much. It was an honor and a pleasure to be invited at Yaşar University through Zoom. But this is a first step, let's say, for future cooperation.
Yes, hopefully we hope to have you, welcome you in Izmir in person as well. Also hopefully we hope to visit Athens and Thessaloniki because
more than welcome.
We have the boat with Thessaloniki. We hope to have one with Athens in the future as well. So we don't only, use the flights, but also boats. Thanks to our, mayors. Hopefully, the cooperation and the good spirit will continue. Yaşar, Kalimera, στην Αθήνα και Θεσσαλονίκη.
Καλημέρα. Ευχαριστούμε πολύ.
Ευχαριστούμε. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Ευχαριστούμε.